A huge market collapse is on the horizon. But it's not going to happen for the reasons you're probably thinking. You can forget the daily headlines about politics and trade wars. The real driver here is a predictable, historical pattern, one that has repeated itself over and over again with stunning accuracy. Let's get right into it.
Take a look at that number, $4.3 trillion. That's the value of the global semiconductor market, and it is on the verge of a seismic, once-in-a-generation disruption. And the trigger? Well, it isn't what you'd expect. It's been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
Most analysts are getting this completely wrong. They're all focused on the day-to-day noise, the negotiations, the latest restrictions, but that's just static. The real story, the one that's actually driving all of this, goes much, much deeper.
What we're actually witnessing is a pattern, a playbook that has been run again and again throughout history. And here's the kicker. We're entering a critical stage right now. So the big question is, what happens next? Because if you understand this pattern, you'll see how the next 18 months could totally reshape the global balance of power.
The pattern is called technological sovereignty collapse. Sounds intense, right? It's a recurring, four-stage process where a dominant power gets so convinced of its own superiority that it's completely blindsided when a dependent nation decides to make a break for it. And the outcome, every single time, is absolutely devastating for the one on top.
So here's how it works in simple terms. A nation is totally reliant on another for some critical tech, but one day it wakes up and sees that dependency as a massive vulnerability. So it starts pouring insane amounts of resources into building its own version. The moment that version is viable, the moment it's good enough, they just flip a switch, and the dominant power's market can implode, almost overnight.
And it always unfolds in these four stages. It's like clockwork. First, there's the dependency. Then comes the asymmetric investment, where the goal isn't to be better, just to be independent. Stage 3 is that sudden decoupling. The switch gets flipped. And finally, you get a permanent restructuring of the entire global market. This sequence is played out every single time.
Now, this isn't just some academic theory. This exact pattern has taken down dominant world powers before. Let's walk through 3 historical examples where this played out, step by step, with terrifying precision. First up, 19th century Britain. They were the workshop of the world. Everyone bought British goods. America was just another customer. And the British elite? They were focused on sophistication and quality, and they openly mocked America's crude early attempts at industry. They were playing completely different games. Britain was playing to stay dominant, America was just playing to be independent.
And then, boom, the American Civil War hits. It forces the US to build its own industrial base. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. And look how fast things changed. By 1890, America was making more steel than Britain. By 1900, it was the world's biggest economy. And British exports? They fell off a cliff, collapsing by 42%. The pattern was complete, and the UK never got that top spot back.
Okay, let's jump forward to case number 2, the 1970s. This time, America is the dominant power. We literally invented the semiconductor. We owned the entire market, and Japan was our biggest customer. But the 1973 oil crisis was a massive wake-up call for them. They realized their dependency was a critical vulnerability, so they launched a national strategy, not to out-innovate America, but simply to achieve their own security and independence.
And would you look at that? For over a decade, U.S. executives watched Japan pour billions into their chip projects, and they laughed. They called them copycats. They were measuring innovation while Japan was measuring independence. Then, in 1986, the switch flipped. Japan's production blew past America's, and U.S. chip companies got hammered, losing billions. The pattern repeated itself perfectly.
Now for an example you just watched unfold on the news. For years, Europe was completely hooked on cheap Russian natural gas. Russia saw this as permanent leverage. Their whole strategy was based on cost and efficiency. But Europe started to see this dependency for what it really was, a massive, massive vulnerability.
And here's the key part. After 2014, Europe didn't make a big fuss. They just quietly started building alternatives. New pipelines, new terminals. Then, in 2022, Russia invades Ukraine, and the switch flips overnight. An 83% drop in Russian gas exports in just 12 months. And get this, Europe started paying 3 times more for its energy, proving that security had become way more important than economics. And just like that, Russia lost its biggest customer permanently.
So, are you seeing it yet? 3 different technologies, 3 different centuries, the exact same pattern. Which brings us to today. Because China is now activating this exact same playbook in the semiconductor market. But this time, it's on a scale the world has never, ever seen. I mean, the sheer scale of China's investment is just staggering. We're talking over $800 billion committed to achieving semiconductor independence. Compare that to the US and EU CHIPS Acts. It's not even in the same league. This isn't about market competition. For China, this is a mission for national survival. And here it is. This is the core strategic move that so many analysts in the West are completely missing. China isn't trying to build the world's best, most advanced chips. They don't need to. They are targeting the 78% of the market that runs on good enough chips, the kind in your car, your microwave, your washing machine. They are competing on self-sufficiency, not excellence. And that brings us to where we are right now. Stage 3 has been triggered. China has achieved what they call minimum viable independence, and they've started the decoupling. They're banning American chips from critical sectors. The switch is being flipped as we speak. And the financial stakes here are just enormous. We're talking about nearly $200 billion in annual revenue for America's top chip companies. Revenue that is now set to just vanish. This isn't a forecast. This is a ban that is happening right now, and it's expanding. That entire stream of revenue is being systematically shut off.
So what comes next is stage 4. And let's be crystal clear. This is not some temporary trade dispute that's going to get fixed. This is a permanent reorganization of the global technology supply chain. When a country spends close to $1 trillion to achieve independence, they don't just decide to go back to being dependent, ever. So what's the total projected hit? Well, the source material estimates a potential revenue loss of $260 billion for U.S. chip companies. And that number isn't just the lost Chinese market. It also includes losing market share in all the developing nations where China is about to become the world's dominant low-cost producer.
And losing that much revenue creates a catastrophic domino effect. Less revenue means less money for R&D. Less R&D means U.S. innovation slows to a crawl, all while China uses its massive, protected home market to become the world's low-cost leader. The inevitable result seems to be two separate, incompatible tech worlds, a U.S.-led one and a China-led one.
A quote from our source material really summarizes this perfectly. The $4.3 trillion market collapse isn't a prediction. It's a historical inevitability. When you understand this four-stage pattern, you realize what's happening now isn't speculation. It's just history repeating itself, but on a much, much larger and faster scale.
And that leaves us with this final, critical question. The West has always competed on being the best, the most advanced, the most excellent. But China is proving that you don't need to be the best to achieve independence. You just need to be sufficient. So what happens to the entire global order when good enough is finally good enough to win?